I want to formally welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Build an Effortless Customer Experience. I'm Rachel and I'll be your chairperson for today. We've got a jam-packed agenda today, so delighted to welcome David Naylor from Humanotics. Welcome, David.
Hi, Rachel again. Yep, good to be here. Looking forward to the session.
Yeah, and is customer experience, the effortless thing, top of your agenda at the moment?
Well, it is, because I guess from my perspective, what we look at in Humanotics is the whole sort of human technology experience, not just sort of the AI piece. So while that's what we're trying to do is help businesses understand how AI can support the better customer journeys and better customer experiences and employee experiences as well. So this whole augmentation of cultures with technology is really critical, and customer effort is one of the things which we're starting to see AI be able to make a real impact in sort of tackling some of those areas of effort that have perhaps in the past been hard to do because of the sort of legacy systems we've got, and ways of thinking as well, which I'm going to touch on today. But what we do is help customers through that process to get to a point of working out how to get the best of this sort of technology.
Brilliant, and also delighted to be joined by Michael Johnson from Interactions. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Rachel. Great to be here. Looking forward to the webinar.
Great, and I'm sure customer experience is very much something that you're looking to improve and things.
Yeah, I mean that's really kind of what. Well, actually, it's been working out how to create effective conversations with automated systems has kind of been my career, and specifically interactions. That's what we do. Our focus is to work out ways to apply artificial intelligence to customer care, and we do that for a lot of large brands.
Brilliant.
And I'll get to that as we go on.
Fab. So just a reminder, we do take a replay of all our webinars. It will be available later on this afternoon on callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. I know a lot of people like to share them with their team, so it will be up online later today. So just a reminder that if you are in the chat room today, there is a chance to win a bottle of champagne or box of chocolates. Sadly, I don't have one today because I am working from home. Not allowed to take home the champagne. So just a reminder, the login is callcenterhelper.com/chat. You do get the added advantage of being able to download the webinar slides. Both speakers have got a lot of information today, a lot of insight, so you can download it from there. It is in a separate window, but you can put them side by side that you can follow along alongside. So I'm going to launch our first poll today, which is which channels have the highest customer effort. So let me do that. And the options are voice, self-service, email, live chat, and social media. So it's multiple choice, so we'll see what happens. David, if you were a betting person, what sort of thing do you think people are saying?
Oh gosh, all of the above. If it's done badly, I think things like we're seeing sort of issues with email have always sort of been a challenge, because of the email sort of bouncing backwards and forwards. We've never really only just starting to get technology to really help us answer those email problems properly and sort of be a bit more smart about how we respond to that. But some of the channels are still a little bit sort of immature in terms of social media. I guess it feels like it's an easier channel to communicate on, but I think it's not that effective because you're generally having to be referred to another channel to deal with an issue. So that'd be my bet.
Okay, so I will share the results. So 51% say voice, 42% say email, 33% are saying self-service, 16% social media, and 13% live chat. Michael, I don't know if that was something that you were expecting?
I'm not surprised that people select voice, but I mean, sort of echoing something that David said, it really depends on the solution, right? So, and also it depends on the solution, and also even if you look at human support, human interaction versus an automated system. In each case, it just depends on how good the interaction is, right? So, people have horrible live chat experiences, and they can have fantastic live chat experiences either with a human or with an automated system. So it depends on how things are set up and how engaged people are.
I suppose we're also seeing that voice is becoming, sort of, it's the channel where more complex interactions are taking place, and therefore, we would expect those to be sort of higher effort. So that's the challenge that
somebody's experience in social. Well, it depends what we mean by social too, right? Because sometimes someone's experience in social is they want to post and say, oh, I just bought this TV and it already broke, right? And then they're very happy if somebody from the company that makes the TV responds to them, which is quite different than trying to do self-service in Facebook Messenger or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time to start the agenda and hand over to David Naylor for his presentation. I'll make you the presenter.
Okay, let me work out how to get this, show my screen and full screen. Okay, let's go back to the top. It's a good place to start. Are we all on screen, Rachel?
Yes, we are. Fab.
Brilliant. Okay, so I think when Rachel and John T approached me to talk about this, I was thinking about the title of the webinar today, How to Build Effortless Customer Experiences. And one thought that occurred to me, one question that occurred to me is that it's actually, do we want all our experiences to be effortless? And now you're going, oh, of course we do. Well, yes, sort of there are probably a lot of cases where that is the case, where we've got sort of poor processes or handoff between channels that fail, etc. And so, there's this friction that we do want to get rid of. But there are also cases where there are some good experiences that come from having some effort in that process, and so we need to make sure we don't take out some of those. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of a couple of examples. Different examples around that today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the customer effort score. I think hopefully most people are familiar with it, but I'm just pulling out some key points on that, and we'll expand a bit on that. But one of the key things is, how do you take the data you're gathering through customer effort and start to use it in the business to help drive improvements? I mean, that's what we're doing it for, isn't it? So I'm going to talk more about some of the practical aspects of that, and then sort of segue into, I guess, what Michael will talk about, which is how some of the new emerging technologies around AI and robotic process automation and other sort of those disruptive technologies are starting to help us think about sort of different way of running operating some of our processes, and a bit more of an innovation coming in, which will really help us to eliminate that customer effort rather than just tinkering around the edges and sort of driving to little changes here and there. So I'll talk through an example of that. And so to start with, we've already talked about humanotics. Happy to talk further if things that we do are interesting. But really, we're trying to drive use and benefits from AI across the whole customer experience process. And that's not just about implementing technology, but the whole sort of business outcome and creating sort of future operating models that really make the most of this technology. So where are we today? Well, we're in a world where what we've done is created what I've termed sort of omnichannel monsters, some friendly, some not. But an example of this is a client I've been working with recently, who up until sort of probably 6 months ago had a different system for managing sales in their stores, in the retailer, versus their online shopping environment. So if you bought something online and want to take it back to the store, there wasn't a clear visibility of that purchase. And when you went into store, if you bought something that it wasn't in stock, the actual agents would, the actual staff in the store would buy that for you through the online system, and then you're now an online customer and haven't got that relationship with the store. So these are fairly fundamental things today that we need to be linking together, sort of sales platforms, but also the service platforms that we've got supporting all these different channels, and that's what I guess we've tried over the years to do with giving customers more choice by adding more channels. What's resulted though is there's probably more disjointed experiences than sort of this omni-channel idea of a process starting in one channel and flowing naturally through to another channel and back again, and sort of all the ideas that I guess are aspirational, but in practice are too expensive to deliver, probably not needed, because sort of customers probably don't chop and change channels as much as we think they do, and certain customers actually prefer one channel anyway. And so we need to think about the investment we're making in all those channels and this omni-channel experience, and think about reducing the effort and the friction in the most appropriate places. And this is even more important as we start to think about the Internet of Things and how sort of data coming from devices in our homes then becomes more information going into that process, and it's another sort of channel, if you like, that customer information is flowing across. How do we bring that together with the existing data as well? And so reducing effort is going to be a sort of a targeted activity, and I use a rather than omni-channel, I'd like to talk about opti-channel, and how do we orchestrate the optimum use of channels to satisfy the customer's need and to minimize the effort and the cost for the business. And there's three key parts to this. First of all, thinking about how we use proactive contact to avoid downstream issues. So I think it's understood that the sooner we can identify issues and be proactive about issues, perhaps even before customers sort of really realize they have issues, how much can we use to address those up front and avoid the cost of multiplying multiple handlings downstream. How we direct the customer when they do contact us to the best channel to avoid to resolve the query first time. Now that may not necessarily be a cheapest self-service channel. It might be that for this particular interaction, this particular need, it's best to just get them on the phone and sort it, and that will end up being the lowest cost, because if we send them to a chat channel first, or some help desk, whatever, then we will end up with the customer calling in the end, and maybe calling 2 or 3 times. But so think about sort of optimizing the cost that way. And what we're trying to do with all of this is balancing the customer ease of getting the issue resolved and the cost of the business. And from a model perspective, I use this, which was a lot of information just appearing on the screen at one time. But there's 3 key parts to this. There's the inputs, a decision process, and an action. So on the input side, we break this down into sort of 3 important areas. First of all, needing to understand what it is that the customer wants to do. What's the intent? And that's sort of a term that's coming up more and more, particularly with chatbots. It's sort of understanding the intent of what the customer's asking, and that's could be to do with sort of where's my stuff in terms of a delivery process, or just want to check my bank balance. Then what do we know about the customer? What's the context? What's the profile of that information, that customer? Age, where are they? What's their contact history? Have we identified them? Things like today outside, what's the weather? So that sort of thing might be important to certain organizations. And then what device are they on? And I think this is sort of becoming more and more important today when we think about the user experience and the user interface. We've got voice with Alexa, for example, coming up fast, but we've also got things like Apple Watch and other things, and so we're soon going to be starting to sort of kick off some of those interactions through those other channels, so other devices. So what you can do effectively on those devices, you then need to think about and think, well, actually, based on what the customer wants, it's probably best to get them to speak to somebody rather than trying to do something on screen, or vice versa. So the bit that sits in the middle here, when we have a view of, we need to service a customer in some way, is this orchestration, and that's using artificial intelligence to make some decisions and some robotic process automation to bring together data from different systems in order to allow that interaction to take place on any of these many channels that you've got listed here. And that could be an outbound contact as well as an inbound. So having some sort of model like this is great, particularly when you've got some the data, then you can actually see the action happening so you can actually see sort of the interaction, but we can't always see sort of the steps in the customer journey, as we talked about earlier. So this is typically sort of the view that we have on customer effort across that customer journey, and there's several stages before you get visibility of the customer that could take place. This is just a simple product purchase journey, and there's a number of things like store visits. We don't necessarily know if customers go into a store. Pre-sales web chats may not be actually linked to a customer account. It may just be a simple interaction, but might be in a system that we don't have access to that data from, or don't sort of regularly sort of update that into our customer records. So the visible footprint is actually much shorter than the actual footprint, and so the places that we're evaluating the effort in is only in a very small part of the customer journey. And as I said earlier, sort of it's important that the more that we can predict and resolve issues upstream, the better we'll be in terms of optimizing the customer experience and in terms of managing the cost and reducing the effort we create downstream. So when we use the effort score to ask a customer about their experience, we have to recognize that that it might be the first time we've had an interaction with them, but there is a part of the journey which may have happened before, which we can't always see. And at that point, if you get a poor score, you need to think about, well, what else do we need to do to help understand why this customer has had a poor experience up to this point. And then just on the efforts score itself, I think most people will be familiar with the evolution of the effort score. It came out of some work that was published in Harvard Business Review in 2010, talking about why we don't need to delight customers but need to focus on effort. And the words on the screen here are some of the things which they said in the article about the ways in which to reduce customer effort. And I think, again, most of these are familiar to people: reducing repeat calls, trying to keep people in one channel, addressing the emotional side of interactions, and solving problems, not just trying to rush through conversations. So that's great, but what it doesn't give you is sort of, well, how do you gather this data, and then how do you do something with it? So the actual metric itself is relatively straightforward, but I guess what's happened is we don't have a common standard to it like we do for Net Promoter, although Net Promoter is often changed as well for many businesses to suit their own needs. But the question is straightforward: how easy was it to get you the help you wanted today? And then that's then captured either in a smiley face or some sort of scale. Again, keeping it simple for the customer. I think there's a more of a preference to use a sort of smiley face categorization these days, and just make it a very simple interaction. And so there's not a lot of thinking that's needed from the customer. It's fairly much a yes, it was easy or it wasn't. The important piece that most people should be doing and will be doing is asking the question why. To gather that next level of data around, well, what actually was it that gave us a poor score or a great score. Some people are asking the follow-up, so should we contact you about this? Great if you can do it. Clearly you wouldn't want to do that if you're not going to be able to get to all those customers. And I did this a few years ago with Net Promoter when I was working with a client in a telco, and yeah, it's a brilliant experience from a customer's perspective to get that phone call when they're giving you a poor score, and somebody is there to rectify the situation. And so, you know, really works well if you can do it. And then there's the concept of thinking about time, and you know, this is, we've got in a situation with survey overload for most people. And so if we are starting to try and use effort as a measure sort of more regularly, then we're in danger of overloading customers with that process. So recognizing that somebody has responded previously and actually acknowledging that in the message that goes out, you know, sort of thank you for your previous response where you scored this process easy or whatever. You know, given your experience today, you know, how do you rate this process compared to last time? You know, and understanding then if they give a different score, you know, well, why are you giving a different score? So that acknowledgement can actually help response rates, and actually sort of creates more engagement with the customer because it's sort of showing you've got that connection with their history with you. And then what's the place for the effort score? Well, we talked a little bit about this just at the start of the webinar, and this is sort of my view of where it sits. So clearly it's very much about understanding the current contact that's just happened, so the phone call or the email interaction. For simpler processes, it's really useful to use at that stage as well. As you get into journeys, depending on how long the journey is, I think it's very much, it's quite hard to use it because of the fact you've got so many blind spots in your journey and you don't sort of necessarily see all of that. It's quite challenging to apply it to a journey. And certainly, you know, the relationship level Net Promoter is a much better measure. I think we could debate this all afternoon, but that's just sort of my view of where it best applied. CSAT sits in there around assessing the agent, then the satisfaction of the customer with the agent in that interaction. And then another one which I'm seeing more and more people use is the employee effort score, and it's not necessarily something that you do on every single call or every single interaction, but it's the agent's view of how easy was it for the customer, and also what is the effort that they had to go to. So it's a good mirror to help you understand sort of, you know, we're creating something that's very easy for the customer, but actually in the background we've got a lot of work going on that we also need to think about. Or, you know, we're making it hard for both the customer and for employees. So it's really useful to bring those two bits together in your analysis of a way to start your improvements. And then some key things to think about in terms of the limitations of customer effort. First one, as I mentioned, is everyone does the scoring very differently. Lots of different ways of thinking about it. So use it as an internal benchmark rather than trying to think about it sort of as an external measure. Being aware of the context. So, you know, what's the history? You know, so clearly, if you just try and get customers to think about the current interaction, they won't. They will think about the history, particularly recent history in their response. And if the outcome from that contact has not been satisfactory from their perspective, then clearly, yeah, that affects the score they're going to give as well. So we get some skew in the data, and you know, you need to think about that when you're looking at that information. The other one is customer interpretation of effort. So you'll get customers who will score, you know, password reset process as a 5 because they think it should be very easy, but actually it was really hard. And then you think somebody who's going through the process of trying to return an item and going through a difficult returns process, also scoring a 5. But in terms of actual time and emotional effort, you know, they're quite different. So you need to break it down by reasons for contact or process, and then think about it at that level rather than trying to look at an overall effort score. And then so the final one here is this point I mentioned about eliminating effort. You need to be careful that in doing that you don't take away some of the experience that the brand represents. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, but if you want more on the sort of the gotchas and some of the sort of practicalities of implementing effort, there's a couple of articles I've referenced here which are on the Call Center website, Call Center Helper website, so go and have a look at those. So just in terms of these examples, you know, sort of, you know, the effort and the experience point. So we all sort of see in Amazon sort of a brand which has created an effortless experience around sort of making a purchase, and to a great degree sort of the returns process as well. So it's frictionless. It's for most 99% of interactions, it really does work very well, and that's that's part of what they do, make it effortless. And so what you then need to think about is, well, where do I get the connection with Amazon? It's great that they do that, but I get the connection in the purchase experience. So when I'm buying, what I get is a very personalized experience around the products, and the thing that draws me in and helps me to I guess spend more is the fact that I'm looking at products which are related to things I've previously bought or that other people have bought when I bought things, and it creates that desire to spend more because it's just effortless. And so I get my predictions like this of, did you know that in the bathroom section that the most gifted item this month is an antique pine toilet seat, and the most wished for, luckily, is number 2 is also a toilet seat. So their algorithms that sit behind the scenes work really well most of the time to present sort of the sorts of things which are appropriate to you. And so we spend more with Amazon because of the low effort that it is in terms of finding the right products and the things that we want. When it comes to IKEA, the effortlessness is not part of the brand. They're very much take a different line. And why is that? Well, you look at the store, and the fact that the store takes you through very convoluted sort of process of going around to the one thing that you wanted to buy. The staff are fairly limited. If you've stood in the customer service returns sections, I have for an hour and a half waiting to return a half a wardrobe, then you know that's quite a challenging experience. And then the queues at the checkout as well. So these are real pain points that are built into the IKEA experience. And when you look at that and you say, well, actually, let's look at the positives and what do people like about IKEA? Well, actually, it's the product displays, the way in which the furniture is available to see and touch, etc., all the way through. And you pick up things that you didn't think you were going to buy as a result of that. The fact that you can return things for 365 days, again, you buy things. If it's not right, we can bring it back. So you make that greater purchase, and then on the other side of the queues, you've got the cafeteria, and also you've got sort of all the things that are lined up waiting to be bought while you stood there in the queue. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, and what this experience does from the IKEA brand perspective is that it actually means that you do spend more because the effort is higher. But on the plus side, from an IKEA perspective, the price is right. So that's why they can achieve this. So just make sure when you're thinking about sort of eliminating effort that you're not taking out things which actually are part of your brand experience as well. So quickly on to sort of the practicalities of how to actually make this, to take the data you're getting from the customer effort score and apply it to your business. I describe this as an effortless continuous improvement process. It does require some effort, but it's relatively straightforward, and you're probably doing elements of this in your business, but I just find this sort of approach works really well. First step is to use something like the value irritant model, as shown here, to categorize your different types of contact. The contact that is of little value to you or the customer sits in the eliminate box, and so the strategies that you put in place in the business would all focus on how we get rid of this contact altogether. If it's of value to the customer but little value to you, it sits in the automate box. If it's valuable to both, put it in the resource, and make sure you've got someone in there to take those contacts. If it's complex for the customer but important for you, then it goes in the simplify box. And that's things like sort of identifying customers for know your customer and anti-money laundering regulations and things like that. And so once you've got your contact, then you're getting that data from things like wrap codes or from using speech and text analytics. Then you've got a model on which you can start building a strategy around eliminating customer effort. So if we look at the automate box, these might be typical things that would be in the automate box. And it's not just about looking at volume, but looking at the scores. So, for password reset, what is the effort score that customers give us? What do employees say about that? And what's the actual workload? So, not just the volume of contact, but the time this takes to handle. That gives us some prioritization, which gives us a view on where we can start looking at root cause, and we're doing our root cause work with our frontline teams, using some of the survey verbatims in that process as well, and potentially using some customer focus groups as well to help us determine what the root causes are and what the actions we're going to take. Those actions can be around quick wins. So we need some budget and we need an agile team. The agile team bringing the experience from across the business together to help us to address those quick wins. Or it could be putting a team together to deliver a transformation project where we need to be looking at sort of different technical options and looking at comparators across the industry and sort of working out, working a bigger program up to build a business case for investment. So that's all great, and I think you can take continuous improvements and sort of the incremental improvements so far. But what's happening today is that actually there are a number of startups and sort of many of the fintechs that are taking a leap forward in terms of their thinking about how to run some of these processes to make them as effortless as possible for customers. And to take one example here, which is someone like Starling Bank. I signed up to Starling Bank in 3 minutes while I was walking across London, and it was just amazing. Really, really simple process, and the whole issue of compliance and risk, is still managed to the same level of as it needs to be, as has happened with other organisations, but clearly they don't have the legacy systems to deal with and worry about. But what you have available today is technology such as RPA, which can help you get around some of those legacy challenges. And what we still see are processes like this, where there is opportunities to do everything: simplify, automate, resource them, eliminate, and there's opportunities all over the place. But should you spend your time trying to sort of fix different parts of this, or do you need to be a bit more radical? And the effort here, the oranges and the reds show perhaps that you should be thinking about this in a more radical way. And so many points of failure that that it's actually really just not worth trying to improve this process. You've got to fix, got to replace it. And so finally, just to leave you with this, this is a view of where I think we're going now with the use of AI and the technology that we have available to us to take that process and create something that's actually could be done in 15 minutes. And we're using chatbots, we're using secure channels, we're using robotic process automation and machine learning, image recognition, all the bits of technology that we're hearing more and more about, and thinking, well, actually there is a way to actually use this to revolutionize the way in which we deliver our processes and transform our customer effort. So it's something that Michael, I think, is going to touch a bit more on, about obviously the use of the bots and how this is going to transform some experiences. So I'm going to pause there after the race through it. Lots of information there, Rachel, but hopefully that's been useful.
Yes, thank you very much for that, David. As you say, a lot of information, so thank you very much for sharing that. We're now going to go over to our chat room and to hear what the audience are kind of discussing. There's been quite a lot of ideas and things like that, so I'll share them out with you. Lucy's actually said that she loves the idea of EES. We're in the process of streamlining our customer surveys. We currently ask 15 questions, so we're going down to 5 or less. I love the idea of asking our staff how easy it was for them to resolve the customer query, which is, exactly what you were saying, David.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, it's just, I've done this for years with getting staff involved in this process, but I think the key thing there is about structuring it around the interactions they're having, not just getting them in a room and saying, tell us what the problems are. And so you really sort of operationalizing sort of that employee feedback.
So Lars actually sent an opinion saying he absolutely agrees with you that customer effort reduction or elimination and an effortless experience is the next frontier in customer service. There you go.
That's good. Keep pushing for those.
So Charlie sent in a tip saying, find out how your top 10 call types and create a customer effort score for each. This will tell you the call types that are causing most effort and will give you a clue for where you need to improve. Michael, I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Finding out your top 10 call. I mean, seems like reasonable advice. Yeah, I mean, it's actually, and there's different ways that happens. That's actually something that, you know, we typically do through a discovery process, right? When we're looking to build a solution combining AI and human interaction. So we'll go in and try and work out what are the call types where there's a particular issue, and then how we can handle that. But
Great. So Mary Lou has said, generally emails take multiple contacts, which increases customer effort. Lara's also sent in saying, rating is also more subjective, i.e. high score to one may be low effort to another. Then creating a score for more discrete elements, we must derive an effort index rather than just ask it. David, I don't know what you think about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is sort of what I was talking earlier about, is sort of trying how do you correlate sort of the effort across different processes. Yeah, so just to take the customer's view and just say, okay, well, you know, someone gives us a 5 for a high effort score for one particular issue, you know, then that's their view. Now we need to understand whether that's valid or whether that's just their view of way of thinking about sort of the they're comparing it to something. So how do we know sort of, you know, what's that score based on?
Yeah.
And so we need to be sort of not just thinking about it at a process or an individual customer level, but looking across different processes and across different customers.
Brilliant. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, so I'm noticing here with the question about EES, I mean, you still have to deal with sort of normalizing for differences across agents, but something that seems interesting to me about EES is that's normalized over a large number of customers, right? So you ask a customer for a score, they're giving you a score with respect to how they want to rate things. An agent is just by nature is going to assign score based on their experience with large numbers of people. So there's some normalization built in that's probably useful.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, we're now going on to our second part of our agenda. So I'm going to hand the virtual baton over to Michael, make you the presenter. There you go.
Can you see it full screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So what I'm going to talk about today is ways to reduce effort in customer care through different ways of combining artificial intelligence and human intelligence. So generally, in terms of the relationship between, what the relationship is going to be between artificial intelligence and humans, in fiction and increasingly in some people's public comments, people have quite a bleak view of what the relationship between humans and artificial intelligence will be. I have a sort of more humanistic view of this. I think increasingly we already see this, I'm going to see more and more cases where you have applications of artificial intelligence that work in tandem with humans and assist them. There's two sort of forms of that I'm going to show you examples of here. So the first one is humans assisting AI. So this is where the customer has the customer feels that they're interacting with an automated system, right? They're with a bot or whatever you want to call it, but there may be human intelligence being used behind the scenes in order to improve their experience and improve the performance of the artificial intelligence solution. The other is where people very much have the experience that they're an impression and that they're interacting with a human agent, but there's some artificial intelligence being used to assist and improve the capabilities of that agent. So what I'm going to do in the presentation today is sort of dig into each of these scenarios in turn, and then and I'll focus in on a particular example from my experience in each one. So first, the humans assisting AI. There's actually a lot of, pretty much all, the vast majority of work in artificial intelligence is, and machine learning, is based on human annotation and labeling, right? So if you're creating a system that's going to predict whether email is spam or not, or, you know, out of a large number of images, select the ones that have particular objects in them, the human intelligence is being used in terms of labeling of those images, of those messages, of calls, in order to give you training data that's needed to build automated models that can make decisions. So that's one sort of asynchronous example of humans assisting AI. There are also various applications in transcription, medical transcription, and so on, and machine translation, where you may have an automated system making initial predictions, and then humans are in the loop to post-edit and improve the overall end product. What I'm going to focus in for an example here is a little different. Where this is synchronous use of human intelligence in interactive systems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about an example where people are interacting with an intelligent virtual assistant, and then in real time there's human assistants improving the experience. You hear me okay? Yeah?
All good.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Want to double check. So the example I'm going to give you is, this is from a food ordering domain, where you know, the task for the customer here is they're calling in and they want to order pizzas and other food items. That's something that you can try and do in a fully automated fashion, but there's significant challenges in terms of background noise, multiple speakers, accent, and so on, which means we're perhaps not quite there yet, certainly in the voice channel, to do this in a fully automated fashion. So, well, you know, what we've looked at doing, what we do here is have people interact with an automated system, but then there are humans in the loop that can come in and basically assist the system and make sure that you maintain quality of service for the customer. So I'm going to play you a short, this is a real call here of somebody calling in and making an order, and you can see how challenging the environment is, and you can see the kind of experience that you can provide if you're able to use human in the loop.
Thanks for calling Hot Box Pizza in West Lafayette. If you have a question, just ask me. If you're placing an order, is this for pickup or delivery?
Delivery. Delivery.
Go ahead and give me your address, including apartment or suite number.
851 David Ross Road, West Lafayette, 47906.
Okay, I've got your name as written and your address as 851 David Ross Road. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, what can I get for you?
Can I have 2 orders of breadsticks, please?
You get 2 saucers with your breadsticks.
Can I have garlic sauce and ranch, please?
Will that be all before I read back your order?
Yes, please.
Any drinks with your order?
No, thank you.
Okay, I've got your order as 2 orders of breadsticks, a ranch sauce, and a garlic sauce. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, the total amount for your order is $10.14. You want to pay by credit card or cash?
Credit, please.
Please enter that card
Okay,
number.
let's get a tail off there before we get into the SPI. So basically what's happening there is, right, for the customer, their experience is it's opaque to them whether they're interacting with a human or with an artificial intelligence. So they have the perception that they're interacting with an artificial intelligence system, but they're not aware. They're not being transferred to an agent or whatnot. So basically, they're interacting with an automated system, and then what's happening is speech recognition and language understanding and other technologies are being used to drive the interaction, and then as needed, human intelligence is used to improve the performance. Now, a couple of key things about this that are interesting. The interaction with that assistant provides a continual stream of data for improvement of the AI system. So every time a human is making decisions, for example, about what the user's intent was or what product they were asking for, that provides that labeling that we were talking about earlier to improve the performance of the AI. Another key thing is that this approach enables you to capture what the users actually want, what the customers actually want to say, rather than what they think they need to say to make a system work. And that means that the quality of the data that you get is extremely high, because you're not capturing what people think they have to say to get a system to work, and rather what they actually want to say. So that's an example of synchronous human assistance of an artificial intelligence solution. So sort of switching to the other direction, to human plus AI, for AI-assisted humans, there's a bunch of cases where we see this. There's obviously a lot of uses of artificial intelligence in data analytics. So you may have a knowledge worker that's able to process large amounts of data that would be very laborious to go through manually, and use AI to direct them to, anomalies and things like that. Increasingly, we're seeing use of artificial intelligence to assist human agents engaging with customers. One example I like is several institutions are doing this, but Morgan Stanley, for example, when you interact with their financial advisors, they've been deploying something called Next Best Action, where the person definitely has the feeling that they're interacting with their financial advisor, but that financial advisor has a screen in front of them that's on the basis of analytics, or predictive analytics, is saying this is a good next potential investment to suggest to this customer, or set of possible investments. We're seeing that more and more also in customer care, right, where you have AI listening in on a call, perhaps trying to predict likelihood to buy, likelihood of churn, and so on, and or actually suggesting how to respond to the customer. And that's the piece I'm going to focus in on here. Sort of the high-level thing about this use of AI is, how can you use artificial intelligence to make every agent as good as your best agent? So by assisting them. So I'm going to focus in on one example that I have some experience with from interactions, which is in this one is, and we were dealing with sort of live telephony customer care in the previous example. In this one, this is in social care. So this is the business of monitoring customer care agents that monitor large volumes of social media and are identifying opportunities to respond to customer concerns and wishes, identifying opportunities to make sales, identifying problems and addressing them, and sort of dealing with how labor intensive it is to address an ever increasing range of different social channels, and respond to them with limited customer care resources for the social channel. So what we do there is ingest data for particular verticals, say hospitality or automotive, from many, many different channels. There's an artificial intelligence engine that's processing all of that, all those posts, potentially text, but potentially also images, other media, and then trying to identify opportunities out of that and optimize work for the social care agent. And then the specific thing I wanted to focus on here is application of deep learning models in order to predict possible responses for the agent. So in terms of finding and routing opportunities, here's a couple of examples of that. So there may be a post, somebody has posted, your Chattanooga Comfort Inn is atrocious, our reservation disappeared, and to call Super 8. So rather than just having that unstructured data, the AI solution can be used to identify the domain of the post, location, the sentiment, and so on. And going beyond that, where the deep learning comes into the solution here is you can take large collections of human-human interactions from channels like chat or social, and then train statistical models to make predictions of possible ways to respond. See, there's another example of what that looks like here in this is a social customer care agent dashboard, which kind of shows you their workflow and so on. And in this case, the animation there, the customer has said, I fell in love with this Buick LaCrosse, don't know if I want it though. And then rather than the agent having to come up with the way to respond, the system will give suggestions which they can accept, edit, reject, and so on. And then that actually provides more data for learning. So using that, using this kind of solution for social care, we were able to identify more relevant content and basically make people able to respond faster and with less staff. Key insights on this were that for social, because you might say, well, what, why can't you just have some templates and always respond using these one or two different ways? In social channels, it's really critical that you don't appear too robotic. And then the learning models we use there are able to learn a broad range of different responses and then closely tailor them to the customer's request. And it's also, I think, a very interesting application of a kind of an end-to-end strategy here, because there's a human agent in the loop. There's no risk of damaging the brand because it's not full automation in the response from that model. It's being presented to an agent, and then they can verify that it's correct. So that was more in the direction of an artificial intelligence, a specific example of an artificial intelligence solution assisting a human. We looked at social care, but similar things apply in telephony and other channels as well. From there, I just kind of want to say a little bit about, we've looked at isolated cases here of, okay, what can it mean to have human intelligence assisting in specific single channel telephony device, or AI assisting human in social. Really where you want to go to, I think, is to work out how you can persist the application of AI across the customer journey, right? So customer calls into a virtual assistant, they interact with it, there may or may not be humans in the background assisting that solution. Then maybe they're, for a particular thing they want to do, there's a transfer. You really want, ideally, the same AI to support the agent there, and provide shared context and utilize predictive models to assist the agent. And then if they repeat call, again, coming into the same solution. And this here is on the telephony, but of course, as we're moving to supporting multiple different channels, I mean, really what we're driving towards is being able to have that AI solution, that intelligent virtual assistant underlying all of the channels. So you can get shared context among them, avoid people having to repeat themselves, whether they're interacting in voice, SMS, mobile, in home devices, talking to an agent in chat, and so on. And one of the things that allows you to do is to not just be aware of the customer as on different occasions they join in a particular channel, but you could potentially, if there are use cases for it, then you can have them do a live channel switch as well, where the affordances of one channel perhaps are better for a particular thing that they want to do, right? So, examples like you're on the phone, it comes up that a customer has a problem with their bill. If you can switch them into a channel where they can view the bill, maybe that's a lot easier than trying to have them go through a series of transactions on the phone. So, that's a way that you can, something that might typically have to be transferred to an agent, there may be a way to handle it by combining channels. And to kind of give you a little bit of a vision of that, I'm just going to play a video. This is a short video of a prototype combining different channels. So this is for a fictional insurance company, Franklin Insurance. You're going to see interactions start in telephony. Then person is going to drop from that and go into another channel. I think it goes to SMS, and it's made a little bit embarrassingly omni-channel here. There's more channel switching than there would I think be naturally, but it's just to show you what's possible and the concept of maintaining context across channels.
Welcome to Franklin Insurance.
So
How can I help you today?
Oh, sorry.
Welcome to Franklin Insurance. How can I help you today?
I need to start a new auto insurance quote.
What kind of car is this?
BMW 328i.
What is the year of the car?
I actually need to go.
Okay, no problem. If we switch to text message, we can keep going on your schedule. You can message us anytime on Facebook Messenger too. Does that sound good?
Sure.
We're going into SMS now. Specifying the year. As I said, this is a little unnatural to switch to Messenger here, but we make a point. So it's going to Messenger, and it doesn't know the connection yet between Messenger ID and number, so they're giving their phone number to connect to the other channel. And continuing the interaction. Go back into phone.
How many miles do you drive a year?
About 10,000 miles.
Okay, I'll be sending a quote to the email address you have on file. Anything else I can help you with?
No.
And then they're going to go into email and see the quote. You could do other things from there too. From email, you could click into a web-based or mobile experience, and have call me back and everything from there. So, as I said, that's kind of it for demonstration purposes. It's set up to be extreme in terms of the number of channel shifts, but I think there's tremendous potential for live channel switch in order to avoid this thing for example, when someone has to deal with a customer service transaction, they have to set aside time because they may have hold time, they may go through multiple steps and make sure they have enough time to get through their transaction without losing that time, right? If you can switch into another channel, you can avoid the risk for the customer in terms of effort, the effort of having to potentially restart a transaction. The other thing it gives you is a hook into that customer, right? So somebody for example, buys a product, follows up about technical support, and if they go from telephony to SMS, you have a far less intrusive way to respond back to that customer later and say, how did everything go with your return, and so on. So there's a lot of different possibilities that it opens up. So in summary, what I've gone over today is just kind of to give you a bit of a sense of different places where artificial intelligence can assist both can work directly with a customer and be assisted by a human, and where you can use AI to assist an agent and kind of look a bit forward from that to where things are going in terms of being able to have that blend of human and AI in both directions across different channels and across the customer journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I know that there's been a few people in the chat room saying kind of how mind blown on some of the examples. I know that someone was asking how was the chatbot able to filter out the background noise for the first example? Is that something that you deal with?
Yeah. So there are multiple things there. So one is, there's work done specifically for automated speech recognition to filter out background noise. But I like playing that call because, among many other ones, I mean, it's a real call. It's not a a demo or something there. And so one of the things you can do to deal with background noise is, if there's high background noise, speech recognition may provide an answer like, this is what I think is being said, but it will carry with it a series of scores that indicate the confidence that the artificial intelligence system has in that response. And then what you can do in that case is usually actually apply some other AI techniques to kind of make a prediction of whether we want to trust that automated analysis or not. And then if there are issues with it, it can be rooted in real time and is actually listened to by a human overhearer who kind of interacts in a video gameized environment to identify what the user intent was, right? And then as far as the user is concerned, they're continuing to interact with an automated system, but human intelligence is being dialed in like just at those specific moments where it's needed. And then over time that gives data, and it may be that in future occasions then that that particular interaction would be dealt with. Humans are also able to do things that automated systems are really not very good at, like identifying whether somebody's not talking to them. That's another piece you get there. And there might be actually, for certain things, you might always want to do them with humans. So we do a lot of applications where we'll capture email address by voice. Arbitrary email address capture with speech recognition is really not there. So that's something that we might always route to a human agent.
Brilliant. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I would say if you could write in the chat room in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about the webinar? We have taken a replay and slides will be available later on this afternoon. As you can see, there was a lot of information. I know that I've heard it a few times and still learning. Just want to announce the winning tip today was Lucy. We will be in touch after the webinar to arrange a bottle of champagne or box of chocolates. We have got a survey. We're always trying to improve, so when you leave the webinar, please fill in our webinar survey. And there's also an opportunity, if you'd like to see more about the interaction solution, please just fill in the box and they'll be able to get in touch with you. I just want to say thank you both to our speakers today, to David Naylor, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And to Michael Johnston from Interactions, thank you very much as well.
Thank you. Great fun.
Thank you all, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you. Bye.